Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Andrew Krauss. I co-founded Inventrite with Stephen Key over 20 years ago, and we've been coaching and mentoring inventors ever since. Welcome to this live YouTube stream. It's going to be a lot of fun. We've been doing this every Wednesday for quite a while now. We've been doing Inventrite for 20 years, but since the whole current situation with the virus and everything, we've been doing these Wednesday meetings, and everybody's been enjoying it. So, if you want to type your questions, just to give you a heads up, what we're all about is licensing. So, what licensing is, it's about um, renting or leasing your idea to a company, and they give you the money. They don't give you the money; they use their money, they use their workforce, and they use their existing distribution, and then they pay you a royalty quarterly every 3 months. That's what licensing is. So you don't need to start a business. You can file a provisional patent for $70. You don't need to go out and spend 10,000 on a patent. Quite often, you can get away with a crude prototype or no prototype at all if it's fairly obvious how the product's going to be made. And we've got a very particular approach to licensing that works really well. And we've had students in over 65 countries. We got students licensing stuff all the time. Steve and I and all our coaches and everybody at the company is very proud of that. So today, what we're doing during this full hour from 5:10 to 6:10 Pacific is answering your questions about licensing. Um, so let's just jump in and do that. Let's have fun with it. I've had a very busy day, but you guys, whenever you ask great questions and I do these sessions, it energizes me to, even though I'm tired, energizes me to have a lot of fun with it. And I don't think nobody ever tells me I don't have enough energy, so I think we're good. Let's see. So let's just jump in. If you have some sort of handle for your Skype username, put your name in there. Put your name's Bob or Sally or whatever at the beginning, so I don't have to read your weird Skype handle, and it can be a little bit more personable. Javed says, "Hi Andrew, I want to hire a graphic designer to help me for making the sell sheet and video. Do I need to sign an NDA with them? If yes, what should be included?" Any graphic designer that doesn't sign your non-disclosure agreement, I wouldn't work with them. And you don't want to do this with most companies, but with a graphic designer, you should have them sign an NDA, and to go a little bit further with what's called an improvements clause that basically says whatever improvements they come up with your invention, if they did, because they probably won't, that you would own those as well. Companies are a little skittish about signing those, but a graphic designer, a service provider should always sign that. So I would recommend an NDA with an improvements clause. You wrote, "Do I need to sign an NDA with him? If yes, what should be included?" So a standard non-disclosure agreement, saying you're not going to disclose anything, and I would include an improvements clause as well. I'm just taking a breath because I just got off a bunch of calls here. All right, Saeed, I have multiple ideas and inventions. Would I be able to license all of them by becoming your student? Yes, Saeed, we can guarantee that. You will license everything you work on. No, of course, we can't guarantee that. What we guarantee at Inventrite is that you'll do and say everything right, and then it's up to the companies as to whether or not they're interested. We can never guarantee you're going to license your product. How long will the course take? The course is for 6 months, our program. It's not a course. So, I don't like saying education or calling it a course because it's 6 years of mentoring and guidance, experiential learning, where you're learning by working on your project from day one. There's no quiz or test. You're working on your project and your coach is guiding you. And so that's how our students learn. And so on your first project, it always takes longer. Second project's like 2 to 10 times faster. So we do that for half a year. And it seems like a long time, and everybody wants to go, "Oh, well, I just want to jump in and I'll license this thing in 2 weeks." It's not really how it works, because you're learning when you're with us. You're working on your project, and as you work on things, you're doing it the first time, and the first time you do anything, it's going to take longer. Second time, when I see people working on a second project, it's like 2 to 10 times faster. So you're learning and you're doing. But what people like about it is it's not theoretical. You're learning with your project. And then if you have time, maybe you work on another one as well, or you talk to your coach about some other projects. We don't limit our students from talking to the coach about other projects, but coming out of the gate with 3 or 4, that doesn't work. We've seen students try to in the past. We don't let people do that. They can only work on one at the beginning, but once they get the calls in, then they can work on others. So we don't limit you to one project, but if you're brand new coming out of the gate, at that point, you need to just pick one project to work on. Then later, once you get the calls in, you don't need to be done with the calls in project number 1, but you need to have started to get those calls in. Let's see. The other thing Saeed said, would you take care of the whole process? Absolutely not. I mean, we're your coach, mentor, teacher. We'll guide you. We'll tell you what to say back to a company. We'll tell you what to say in the next call. We'll show you how to improve your marketing materials. We'll show you how to improve your list of companies. We'll show you how to file a PPA, but you're doing the work. We're not going to do it all for you. The companies that claim to do it all for you, there's these invention promotion companies, and I can just tell you from my personal experience, I'm not talking about any company in particular, because I would never say anything libelous about any company in particular, but I've never met an inventor in 20 years I've been doing this, in the 14 years I did my Inventors Association, that has ever had an invention promotion company license a product for them. So be very wary of companies that say they'll do all this for you, because I just don't see it working out. So good question, Saeed. Mark says, hello, I have a number of invention ideas that I would be unable to make a prototype for based on my lack of specific skill set. Any ideas on how to best outsource that work? Well, the question mark is, do you need to make a prototype on it at all? So if it's fairly obvious how it's going to be done, just because you can't make the prototype doesn't mean you have to. So if the company says, well, how are we going to do this? You're like, oh, well, there's this thing over here. There's these glasses over here. And you see how this hinge goes like this, but I just changed it to go like this. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, we can get some quotes for that. We can see that could be done. So by citing similar products and just explaining what your change is, don't think that you have to have this beautiful production-ready prototype to license a product, because you absolutely don't. So the real question you should be asking, Mark, is not whether or not you can make a prototype, but whether or not you think the company can do it. If you're fairly certain the company can do it, just move forward. Do your sell sheet, do your video sell sheet, and license it, and see and try to put that onto them. Okay. But if you're like, I don't even know this can be done, I don't understand the technology. Now, maybe you don't understand the technology behind the invention, but you understand your piece of it. Well, I'm just putting a hinge over here. I don't understand all the inner workings, but I don't need to. They will, because it's obvious there's other products out there that use all that technology. I don't need to understand that. So most inventors don't understand that they can do this, and our students do. So it's a very empowering approach. So that's a great question. That was from Mark. Great question. So he also said, well, how do I outsource the making of the prototype? So like maybe you still do, for whatever reason, want to outsource the making of that prototype. You can definitely do that, but it's going to vary tremendously on what type of product, how far do you need to go with the prototype, what it is that you need. So I really can't answer that question specifically, because it's really going to depend on the product. Vic says, hi, Andrew. Thanks for the call with Amy, Joe, and Paul last week. Their information came in handy. Paul is our negotiation coach, as Amy is one of our coaches. As I'm in the process of a contract, thanks to InventRight. Wow, that's great, Vic. Fantastic. And you got a smiley face and a thumbs up. So, and hopefully you'll be getting a check soon. So, let's talk about that real quick, though. With licensing, it's not a get-rich-quick thing, guys. It can take a company 3 to 9 months, or maybe a little bit more, to launch the product. Then you get paid your royalties quarterly, every 3 months. So quite often, after you license the product, it's over about a year or over a year before you start to see royalties, and that's normal. So when people go, oh, I need to make money in 2 months, I go, well, don't do licensing. If you need to make money, great, but not in 2 months. So you can make a lot of money with licensing, but it's not overnight. But what you're doing is you're tapping into this really big company. So what I like to say is you can have delusions of grandeur when you're licensing, And you're not delusional, because what they can do is amazing. They can sell 500,000 units. They can sell 50,000 units. They can sell 20,000 units. Depends on the product, right? They have all the money. They have the workforce. They have the distribution. So they can do amazing things. And you just had the idea and you brought it to them, and then they're going to take it from there. But they can't do stuff overnight. They just can't. Yeah, you could launch your own product, have a rinky-dink website, sell it here or there, and you sell a few units, but that's not what these big companies are doing. They're making big launches. They have timelines. They have a lot of other stuff they're already working on. They need to put it in that work process and get it up and running and do it right. And that takes a little bit of time. Gary, is it a good idea to find potential licensees by going straight to the manufacturers and advertise with them? I don't know what that means. We'll see if I can figure it out. That way they can make the product there with the companies whom I'm licensing my technology to. Okay, so what usually the company, Gary, the company that you license to also does the manufacturing almost most of the time. Now, they might have their own plant, or they're getting it made by a contract manufacturer in China or whatever. You don't care. You don't care where they're getting it made. They're going to be doing the manufacturing. So the marketing company is going to be usually doing the manufacturing as well as the marketing. And it doesn't matter if they're outsourcing it to a contract manufacturer or doing it at their own captive plant. You don't really care as long as they're manufacturing it. So usually you're not going to find a separate manufacturer. Now, if it's something they really don't do, and you could find that manufacturer that does this type of manufacturing, and they're like, well, the brand or the company you're licensing is like, well, we don't do that type of manufacturing. This is out of metal. We just do plastic. And you're like, oh, well, I have contract manufacturer that can do it. That's a bit of a stretch. You're asking them to do something they just don't do. They don't make metal products when they all make all plastic products. But you could do that in that scenario, and you can make them more comfortable. Well, I've got these guys that say they can do it, and they're like, oh, the product really is intriguing, but that's going to be a little bit harder to pull off. Linda Marie, how important is it to have a video link on your sell sheet? Depends. Sometimes a sell sheet, just having graphics on one-page PDF, it's clear what the product is, and you don't need a video. You got the right picture, and you got the benefit statement, a few bullet points, maybe a sub picture, smaller picture too, and they look at it, oh, I get it. And so other times it can be very beneficial to have a video. Some of our students will just do a video and not do a sell sheet. Some will just do a sell sheet. Some will do a sell sheet with a link to a video. And when our students work with a coach, they figure out what's right. And they tell you why you need both, or why just a sell sheet, or why just a video. And so it really depends on the product. So how important is it? Do people like videos? Yeah, they do. And they don't need to be amazing or beautifully produced. They just need to be direct and to the point. So most of our students, they just shoot it with an iPhone or iPad or something like that, and be direct and to the point. I think the most important thing that our students do is work with their coach on what the storyboard needs to be. Okay, we're going to do this scene, then this scene, this scene. A lot of times they'll just shoot it, and it's just the person talking, showing something. Other times a video could be a series of still images where the inventor is doing the voiceover. A video isn't necessarily what you think it is. It could be just completely a series of still images with a voiceover. It could be just focused on the inventor talking about the product, showing the product. It varies tremendously. So Linda Marie, it depends on the product is the answer. Susie, can I pitch two products that go together to one licensee? The products wouldn't be in the same licensing category. Well, if they wouldn't be sold by the same company, the answer is no. So you say the same licensing category. So if it's a fishing product and the companion product is a cooking product, and you're pitching to a company making fishing lures and fishing products, and you're saying, oh, well, you should sell this cooking product, and they don't have a single cooking product, well, then it doesn't make sense. So it has to make sense. Both of the products need to make sense for their product line. Otherwise, they'll be like, well, we'd only do half of that, and the other half, that doesn't right for us. So then their knee-jerk reactions, well, then this isn't right for us. So I know without specific examples, it's hard to say specifically, but I think generally If it's in a different category that they wouldn't normally be in, I wouldn't push two of them. But don't take my answer for law, because without seeing the product, I can't know 100% for sure. Okay. And that goes with anything that I'm saying today. I want everybody to benefit from my answers, because nobody is sharing their product, nor should you, which I should make that disclaimer, because you should make public disclosure in this setting. So don't include any links or anything in the chat. And then everything that I share is not legal advice. It's just business advice. So seek the services of an attorney before you take action on anything. Next one. Gary says, how important is it to have a name for your invention or your product you're working on? Is it mandatory to have it trademarked? No, and the trademark thing, we talk about this in almost every session. Again, up here, right there, InventRight we've been around 20 years. Only last year did we get a registered trademark. It should say R now, but it's a TM. It's free to put TM. Put people on notice that you intend on using it, and it offers you a certain measure of protection. We won't get into the details, and that's completely free. A lot of times they're going to change the name. I think, you want to have a working title. If the working title, it should be very descriptive. It shouldn't be too fanciful in trademark terms or too cutesy, unless it makes sense. So if it helps you understand the product, great. But so I would make it more descriptive than too cutesy. So when you have a good name, benefit statement, some bullet points, and when they quickly 6 to 10 seconds kind of scan that sell sheet or video, they're looking over it and they're just bam, bam, bam. Oh, this is all making sense. So if the name can help it make sense quicker, a good name is important. But if your benefit statement is great and you don't have a name, that can work just fine. Most of the time, yeah, you don't always have to have a name. Most of the time, it makes sense to have a name, though. I guess Lawn is your name. LAWN is what you wrote. My invention is a scientific method of producing electrical energy. It's obviously non-retail and would require tons of scientific research for commercial implementation. So, yeah, I kind of joke about this with, he says it's a way of producing electrical energy. So I call people that do those types of products energy inventors. And there are different kinds of energy inventors. And normally, most inventors are not wacky, but there's a percentage that are. And in the energy invention category, there are some whacked out freaking people in that area. Like, oh, Andrew, like on a liter of gas, I can run my car for a year. Or they just say whacked out stuff and they present themselves in a really unscientific manner and just crazy, crazy, crazy. So the reason why I say that is if you have an energy invention, anybody that is working in that space, any companies working in that space, they have guaranteed experience, crazy, what I call energy inventors. So you want to do everything in your power not to be perceived as a crazy energy inventor. So you have to present it very professionally, show them how they're going to sell it. And yeah, they might reach back. And so you don't say things like, when you say things that sound unbelievable, which you could be a reputable scientific energy inventor, when you say things that are unbelievable, talk about that you've got some research, this or that, so they don't discount you before you get a chance to show your scientific data. So not all energy inventors are crazy by any means, but one of the things you want to do is not be perceived as one of those. And even though it might be amazing what you can do, bring it down a notch and sound realistic so they don't put you in that category. Now, the other problem that you're talking about, Juan, is there's a lot of research needs to be done to prove it. So you've got a theory, but you can't prove it with all that research. And so you really need to figure out how to get a grant or something to do that research. Now, your thought maybe is like, well, I could get them interested and then they can do that research. And that is valid. But companies that are into science and all that, I would have at least enough data where they're like, oh, it would make sense for us to invest in further research to fully prove it out. So come across as knowledgeable. If you don't have a background in it, maybe you got somebody working with you that does, and then you can try to get them to do it. But it's hard. It's hard with those energy inventions, without a doubt. And you have to think about what are the applications for it, right? And show them what the possible applications for. A lot of engineers, they don't do that. Like, is it to run an entire city? Is it just to run your RV? Is it as an energy backup for your house? Like, you have to be specific and think about how it's going to be marketed. And you want to kind of go for the lowest hanging, easiest to implement iteration or version or for what market, then it can be proved out there and then go bigger. So always go for the smallest, easiest to implement, most cost effective, least research. And then once the technology is proven there, then you can retain the rights to license it for other applications, but you can get that first company to do that initial research. I'm going to a lot of detail. Most of you probably don't have energy inventions, but I've seen so many over the years. That's, I think, very solid advice. Raul, hi Andrew, what are the basic materials needed to submit ideas in the novelty industry? Sketch, PPA, digital mock-up, sell sheet, which would give us a higher chance of licensing to a company? You can get away with less. You know, we just had Jason on from Fred and Friends, and he's okay with sketches. So this is what I would recommend. I would do a little bit more than you think you might need to do, because with novelty, you can get away with less once they get to know you. And then I would submit that to some companies, and they say, oh, not interested in this product, because it's normal to submit to, you know, 10, 20, 30 companies, and maybe 2 show interest, but the 28 that don't, you say, hey, can I submit more? And you say, what do you want? Is you okay with just a simple sketch? Or do you need something fancy? Do you need a virtual product? Like, what do you need? And some of them are going to be like, oh, what, you know, we look a lot of ideas. So just some sketches is fine. It doesn't need to be the level of the product you submitted to us. So with novelty, you can get away with more. But I would recommend making that relationship by sending them the first one, then asking them what is okay. Now, you could also email a bunch of novelty companies and say, what kind of level of submission would you like? I'm a novelty inventor, and I have a lot of ideas. You could do that up front as well. But that is something interesting, Raul. You can get away with a lot less, but I would ask them. You can ask them after you submitted the first one, or you could just ask them beforehand too. I think there's nothing wrong with that. And they'll all have different, they'll all be different. So Jason from Fred and Renz was okay with conceptual sketches, but not everybody will be. So Joseph, how should I interpret it when a company has an idea submission page on their website, but within that page, they say they are not open to unsolicited product submissions? Well, that's confusing. So they have an idea submission page. They're not open to unsolicited. I think what they're saying is you need to get permission first. Don't blindly send me your submission. So let me see. You said they have an idea submission page. So what they're saying is follow the instructions. Some companies are weird. Like, you know, there was, actually, this isn't weird, but we had the gentleman from Scrub Daddy on, Andrew Krauss. Okay, sorry, Aaron Krauss. I'm Andrew Krauss with it. SS and he's SE. So Aaron Krauss, Scrub Daddy, huge, $256 million in sales. And he came on and he had a different process. He didn't want an unsolicited submission. What he wanted is like what category is, and I don't think this is typical, but some companies want this. Tell me what area it's in, like without telling me specifically what the invention is. And then I'll tell you if we're looking for something in that area. So that's what he wanted. So if they have to read through the page, the submission page, and if they're unclear, just ask them, what do you want? So what they're saying is don't like email it to us unsolicited. Don't send us to LinkedIn unsolicited. Follow our directions. And if the directions aren't specific enough, ask them. So that's what because it sounds like they have a submission page, but don't send it unsolicited. So maybe it means that they want you to sign their non-disclosure or non-confidentiality, which is common first, that sort of thing. So that's what they're talking about. Without looking at the specific page, I can't tell you, but in general, so just ask. Read through the page, because if you don't read through the page, then they're going to go, didn't this dude read through the page? And inventors do that stuff, you know? I'll tell you a little story. Actually, it's on Fred and Friends earlier. So Steve and I run this Inventors Groups of America, which is a group we formed about 3 years ago to support inventor association leaders across the country. And we do some free education for inventors there as well. We don't sell anything. It's completely free. And it's called Inventors Groups of America. And in a newsletter we sent out that Fred and Friends looking for ideas. Now, this isn't InventRight students. These aren't people that have been trained on how to license. It's just random people that can, inventors that can join Inventor Groups of America, which is everything's free there. And we said Fred and Friends is open to ideas. And this is just before Jason was heading off to the Housewares show. And he got flooded literally days before he's going to head to the Housewares show, which is very stressful, with ridiculous ideas that made no sense for their product line. If you look at their product line, they're functional novelty. They're functional products for the kitchen, but they're funny and quirky as well. You know, like they have these wooden stirring spoons that's actually a drumstick. So the end of the wooden stirring spoon is a drumstick. So you could hit on the pot with the drumstick and then you could stir stuff, right? That sort of thing. Really cool. Check out their Fred and Friends website. I forget what the website is. Oh, genuinefred.com, I think is the website. But he got inundated with people like, here's my bicycle rack invention. And what they were doing is they saw that said, this company's open to ideas, and they didn't even bother to look at the company's product line. So when inventors do this, it's incredibly unprofessional. It makes all the rest of you look bad. And actually, some companies will stop receiving ideas because they get inundated with ideas that make no sense for their product line. So you could do the same thing with the submission form. Read it through twice, 3 times, understand what they're looking for. Are some companies not clear? If they aren't, email them, get clarity. Or if for some reason there's no emails, fill out the form, get clarity. Say, I want to be clear. I want to send you what you guys want. So there's a lot of opportunities for inventors to be unprofessional, and inventors that are not InventRight students take that opportunity, and they are unprofessional. You have no idea some of the stories I've heard, and it makes you guys, which are more on top of things, look bad. But when you send good stuff and you're very thorough, it makes you look good. Wow. As companies say constantly, the stuff we get from InventRight students is so much better. It's easy to see they're InventRight student, because they've thought about it. It's at least somewhat in the right category. They don't have this rambling email. They have a nice clean sell sheet or video sell sheet, and companies love working with InventRight students. And you guys being fans, I would say you're definitely a notch up from just the average inventor on the street, because you're getting some education, through these sessions and through the YouTube videos. Okay, let's see. That was Joseph. Bobby says, wouldn't the unilateral NDA cover any contributions made by a signer that belongs to the inventor? Rarely. That's really scary for, a bilateral NDA that we won't disclose what you show us and we won't disclose what you show them, but not an improvements clause. An improvements clause that says whatever you send them, they can't come up with any improvements. And if they're working a lot of stuff in that space, that scares companies. So a unilateral NDA, we won't share what you showed us, and you won't share what we show you. Maybe they tell you about, hey, we're working on this other product, and this might fit in with that, and you won't disclose those sort of things. But an improvements clause scares companies, so you have to be very careful with that. Leela, I often have ideas off the top of my head. I submit to novelty companies. Should I write a provisional for each product? My official answer to you is, and we give to all our students, is you should always file a provisional patent before submitting a product to a company. But I'll tell you that in novelty, they're so like quirky and fun, and you can quickly sketch them up or have somebody sketch them up. And the novelty companies like to see more ideas before they pick one. And so I know of novelty inventors that will not file a provisional every time they show something to a company, especially with companies they already know and they're used to showing them a lot of ideas. But that is not the advice I'm officially giving you. I'm just telling you that I know inventors do that. And that if you're going to do it in a particular category, I think it makes more sense in novelty than it would other areas. But a lot of you, if you're new to submitting products, filing a provisional for $70 give you the warm and fuzzies. You're protected, and you just don't hesitate as much. And so it just for the mental well-being of pushing forward with no hesitation, it can help people that are new to the game. Let's see. Okay, Adam here. I've got a great sell sheet, good prototype, great scripts for contacting companies, but I'm having trouble getting replies from companies just to show my sell sheet. Any ideas? Well, if you have a great sell sheet, good prototype, and great scripts for contacting companies, the prototype and the sell sheet doesn't matter because it's about getting their permission. I mean, those things matter, don't get me wrong, but you need to get, yes, send it to us. You need to get permission. So in that case, you say you have great scripts for contacting companies. Maybe they're not great scripts. Maybe you're not, I don't know how you're reaching out, Adam, but maybe whatever you're saying on LinkedIn isn't right. Maybe what you're saying on the phone isn't right. Maybe your perception of not getting any okays, trouble getting replies from companies. So replies, so to me, partly that means you're not calling anybody. That must mean you're emailing or just doing LinkedIn. You're not calling because you're saying replies. So I think they're good. Might be a good chance that you're just sending emails. So you said any ideas? Yeah, pick up the phone and call them. And with LinkedIn, make sure you get them into your network first, and don't send custom connection requests. And then a couple days after they add you, or a week, then hit them up. So if you're hitting them up straight away without letting them add to your network first, that's your problem. That doesn't work. And then I don't know where you got your scripts or what they are, but they may not be right. Maybe, so there's some feedback there. Michael says, what is the best way to have a beta version done for your product? He means a prototype. Just get a virtual prototype done. Just get some sort of drawing that looks like the product, a 3D rendering without any dimensions, and sell the benefit of the product. Because that's what you're truly selling. You're selling the benefit of your product. You're not selling your prototype or a patent. So, and see what the interest level is. Go fishing. And that's something that we've been telling our students forever. Saves our students a tremendous amount of time and money. A lot of people want to look for excuses not to reach out to companies because they're afraid to do it. And having to make a prototype. Oh, I don't have the money for a patent. There's a million reasons why, and we remove all those reasons. To think that, oh, well, this company shows interest and I don't have this perfect, beautiful prototype, they're going to kick me to the curb. It's just not true. So, and if you thought that was true and you thought you had to have a prototype, I'm telling you, you don't. Now, again, varies by product, but most of the time you don't. So when we're on these group, live chats, without looking at your product, I can't say 100% for sure, but I can give general advice that is true most of the time. Hi, Andrew. Thank you for doing these Q&As. I have a unique, this is from Margie. I have a unique pillow idea with a unique cover. Do I need to have a PPA for each item? No, you can, especially when they're related, you can wrap those into the same PPA. I get the question all the time. If you had a bicycle rack and a pillow, are you going to throw them in the same PPA? No. But if you have the pillow case and the pillow, you can definitely throw those in the same provisional patent application. Absolutely. Again, everything tonight is not legal advice. Seek the service of an attorney if you're looking for legal advice. Let's see. Philip. Hi, Andrew. If we submit an idea to multiple companies and get interest from 2 different companies, which I'm guessing is rare. No, it's not rare at all. It's very common to get initial interest from multiple companies. How should we go about choosing the right one? And how to respond to both? So the way we approach, God, our students would be screwed if we didn't give this advice. This is very important. You move forward with them both as if the other one doesn't exist. We get students that approach 30 companies, get interest from 5. And we say move forward with everyone as if the other one doesn't exist. They'll just naturally fall off. It's rare you're at a final contract stage of a negotiation and you've still got 2 or 3 companies interested. So move forward with everyone as if the other one doesn't exist, and do not pit them against each other, and do not talk about the other ones. If you start talking about one with another, and then they're like, oh, well, then they're going to talk to them about me. And so that betrays a trust that you should have, so don't do that. So it's very basic advice, but most inventors would never do that. And then here's the deal. This will drive you crazy. Let's say you have 20 companies, 25, let's say. You reach out to a company. Oh, you get a little interest. Okay. The average negotiation from initial interest to close for us over 20 years is 3 months. Some could take 5 or 6. It could take a month and a half, but the average is 3 months from initial interest to the signing of the contract. So let's say you get interest from this company and you stop calling other companies, which is what most inventors would do. Oh, these are my guys. These are my guys. Back and forth, back and forth. Oh, well, you get some quotes. Time I do this. And then we decided not to after 2.5 months. Oh, crap. Now you reach out to 3 more. Oh, I got another one interested. Okay. Back and forth. 2 months this time. We decided we're not interested. So you could string this thing out forever. If you're approaching multiple all at the same time, then you get it done. And there's no reason to string this thing out over a year. It's ridiculous. Don't make that mistake. Most inventors that are not InventRight students or InventRight fans will make the mistake. It's a giant, stupid mistake. And you sit around like being anxious. Like if that one company showed interest, others probably would show interest too. So you should be energized by that and reaching out to other companies. So it's a great question, Philip. Don't worry about it for 2 seconds and reach out to all your companies from the get-go, and don't just go, these are my guys. You have no loyalty to them whatsoever for them just showing some interest. Okay. Until they sign the deal, you don't have that. It could get a little sticky if they're like spending $5,000 on a prototype or something. Okay, then you need to deal with that. But most companies are just going to get some quotes and things and figure out if it makes sense. And then you can go from there. Jake, I've got an idea that's small on something that's used every day, but it would be great on something else that could be a problem. Okay, Jake, I can't answer that. I have no idea what that means. Well, let's see if I can answer it in some general way. I've got an idea that's small on something that's used every day. Okay. But it would be great on something else that could be a problem. Okay. So let's just assume what you're talking about. You're taking something from somewhere and it's being used and putting it somewhere else. And that's very common to do that when you're inventing. So that's okay. And it's got some new use. It's got new functionality over here. Now, again, I don't know what your product is, so I can't say that for sure, but it's got some new functionality. It's a different category. It's being used in a different way. So that sounds very viable. That's very common. And it's not something you should usually be concerned about. Let's see. Clay says, how important is it to have an LLC set up before pitching a patent? I don't think it's important for pitching a patent, but I think it's very important that you always do a licensing agreement under an LLC or a corporation and never under your own name. We always insist that our students file an LLC when you're in the midst of signing a deal, but it's not something that's required in order to go fishing and see if there's interest, because LLCs are kind of a pain. Like in California, it's like $800 a year and you got to maintain it. In Nevada, where Stephen and I live, it's $200. In some states like Michigan, I think it's like $40. It's cheap, but you got to like maintain it. It's just one more pain in the butt thing to do. So, and the company could care less if you're doing business just under your own name before and you're like, hey guys, I want to do it under my new LLC, they could care less. So don't think like it will mess you up, because I don't know how that would mess you up. So it is important to always do the deal under LLC or corporation. But I don't think it's that important before. Again, not legal advice. Seek the services of an attorney if you're looking for legal advice. Aaron says, thanks for doing these. Andrew, always learning something new, watching you answer questions. Cool. It is a little weird, isn't it? It's like I'm just reading questions and then rambling, and I'm just seeing myself on the screen and none of you guys. It's a different format, but I've gotten used to it because I've been doing this for a while on YouTube, and everybody says they like it. So let's see. Yeah, so Lon was just, commenting with a smiley face. It's not a child is perpetual. He had the energy device, energy and machine invention. Any patent application, even claiming that that is rejected right anyway without further analysis. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I mean, you guys have seen, I'm not making fun of mentally ill people, but we've all seen people, homeless people or people with mental conditions, and they'll have these, I forget what you call it, delusions of grandeur. They think they're going to be the next president, or the world is coming to an end, or I have a machine that will produce energy forever at no cost, or things like that. And I've talked to my share of those inventors. I'm always very nice. But I can tell the difference between somebody that is a scientific background. Now, some people aren't. They're not crazy energy inventors, but they just don't have the background in science. So they have this concept, and they need somebody to prove it. And then it takes a lot of research and stuff to do that. So they're tough ones to work on. So don't think anybody has an energy invention I'm saying is crazy. I'm really into that. I'm really into solar, actually. I'm fascinated by solar and kind of studying solar. I actually got a book here from another YouTuber, um, Will Prowse, and he actually lives in Henderson, where I live here, and so I'm in the process of putting solar on my RV and stuff. So I love energy inventions. I think they're great. So don't get me wrong. I'm not ribbing energy inventors. That's geez, just imagine all the great stuff we can do, all the wars we can prevent and stuff if we can find energy inventions where we're no longer dependent on oil and things like that. So they have my full support, energy inventors. Um, Okay, very general question, but a lot of people, especially those that you knew, they're thinking of this. RB says, how do you stop companies from ripping you off when you submit an idea? So this is what I can say. In 20 years, we've had students in over 65 countries. We've never had a student that I'm personally aware of that has been ripped off by a company that they have presented to, privately showed their invention to. I have talked to inventors that say they were ripped off. But when they tell me the way, some of them, when they tell me the way they conducted themselves, most of them, with the company, I'm like, wow, okay, you were acting nuts. And the company was really like, they were talking to the company was showing interest, company started doing stuff, started moving forward. And then the inventor's like, well, then I asked for $250,000 and they didn't want to pay it. And I'm like, that's not what you would do. That's not how licensing works. You get paid as they make money and they're selling units, then you get paid a royalty per unit. And they're like, well, it's totally worth that, Andrew. I'm like, I don't care if it's worth that. Maybe you get paid $500,000 over 10 years or something, over 5 years. You don't ask for that all up front. And now they move forward and all that. And now you pissed them off. And so I've talked to inventors, and I'm not saying it's justified to rip an inventor off that's asking for something that's unreasonable, but you got them moving forward and they're asking for crazy stuff. But I've never had one of our students that I know of get ripped off by a company that they presented to. I've had some students that were concerned about it, and I gave them some, what I call, little things to kind of, not in a paranoid way, because you don't come off paranoid inventor, to keep them guessing. And they said those things to the company, either verbally or via email as they're leaving. Oh, thank you. And I realize you're not interested. No worries. And I filed some additional intellectual property that they hadn't showed them. This is one thing you can do to kind of keep them guessing. And the inventors, I said, well, keep tabs on their website. And I've never had an inventor who came back and said, oh, no, now they came out with it. I see it on their website. You've got this paper trail. So to answer your question, RB, you've got this paper trail on what you've shown them and when. You've got the provisional patent you've filed. They would not be first true inventor. I think if a company's going to rip you off, this is my biased viewpoint. Again, this is not black and white, guys. It's more than likely to be a mom and pop company. But if it's a bigger company and they have a board of directors, they're terrified of lawsuits. They're more afraid of you than you should be of them. So it's the mom and pop companies where you got a stupid CEO or management that is acting egregiously because they're not accountable to a board of directors like at a bigger company, and they make stupid decisions, and they make rash decisions, and they make decisions that any big company, they're worried about liability. So am I saying that no inventor has ever been ripped off by a company? Of course, I'm not saying that. But the best form of protection that I always say is conducting yourself professionally. So our students, when they don't send wacky emails, when they send good sell sheets, when they conduct themselves on the phone professionally, that is the best form of protection. So I think the 3 or 4%, it's a random number, guys. This isn't a solid statistic, but the 3 or 4% of companies, that's my guesstimate, that would consider ripping you off, when they see you know what you're doing, they see you're conducting yourself professionally. Let's say you're talking to Cindy and she's the marketing manager, and she has an unethical CEO. His name's Bob. All right. And Bob likes this product. And he says, Cindy, why should we pay this inventor? And Cindy's like, well, I think we should pay him because he's not like that wacky inventor from a year ago. He's conducting himself very professionally. I can see he knows what he's doing. I think this is the liability. Bob's like, whoa. Well, and Bob, what I think we should do, I think either we should pay him a royalty or we should move on. But he's filed a patent. I believe it's a provisional patent. He's covered himself. I don't think we should go around him. So I can't guarantee you that those conversations that happen by companies that our students present to, but because our students are acting so professionally, it's not what you think. Was it? God, all these more questions came in, and then I lost track here of who was asking that question. RB. That's not what you thought, RB. It's like, oh, I get a patent. I have an issued patent and nobody can touch me. That's bullshit. A patent is just a right to sue. So I actually think the best form of protection is creating a paper trail, filing a provisional patent, and conducting yourself professionally, not doing wacky stuff. Companies will sometimes try to work around inventors that are being completely unreasonable, and that can happen. And if they're legally working around your stuff, but if you'd been more level-headed, they wouldn't have done that. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying I'm totally okay or whatever, but they can work around stuff if they want to. That's why it's nice to kind of keep them guessing as to what protection you have or not have. And that's why you don't want to show the provisional patent early on. And you can always have additional provisionals filed. Like, oh, I filed some additional provisional. Oh, can I see that? Well, I thought you weren't interested. It's like, oh, and now they're thinking like, well, I don't know what they covered. And he says he's got a better version. He's covered it. So there's a lot of ways of dealing with that. What I'll say, RB, is 9 times out of 10, it's not the company that rips off the inventor. It's the inventor that rips themselves off by never showing their product to a company out of their own fear. So the real problem is not companies ripping off inventors. It's inventors ripping themselves off by thinking every time they need to have an idea, they need to spend 10 grand on a patent, and all these companies are there to steal your idea. It's bullshit. It's totally not true. Now, does that mean that no company is ever going to rip off inventor? Absolutely not. Of course not. But you conduct yourself professionally, you do what you can, and you assume that risk. If you feel like, oh, there needs to be a way where there's zero risk, well, this is business. There's no such thing. There's no such thing in business in general. If you start a sandwich shop, is there a guarantee that nobody's going to start another sandwich shop close to your sandwich shop and take some of your business? No. This is the same thing with this sort of thing. So get real. Be okay with assuming a certain amount of risk, but reduce your risk by doing these things, by filing a provisional patent, by creating a paper trail, by conducting yourself professionally. Those are some of the great forms of protection. So RB, I love the question because there's a ton of other people that are listening that are thinking the same thing. And some of you guys may have heard me do a YouTube show or something on this topic, but some of you haven't. So thank you for asking a great question, RB, that benefits everybody. And that's what I really want to do with these YouTube live streams. I want to answer questions that are beneficial to everybody. And if you ask something that's so specific for your idea, then it might not apply to everybody, and you can't disclose your idea anyway. So, so Eric says, hi, Andrew, should I get a manufacturer to sign an NDA before I send CAD drawings to get a quote, or will that come off as offensive? No, once the company's seen your product and they want more information, like a CAD drawing in particular, they're almost always okay with signing an NDA. Almost always. So, and then they're signing the NDA, your NDA, from the few inventors they showed interest in, not the 300 in a month that they got. and so they can review your NDA and make sure they're okay with it. But if they get an NDA before they even see your idea, your NDA, and they need to review 300 NDAs to make sure that your NDA doesn't say they own their company, or something crazy like that, then they don't want to do that. But if you're sending CAD drawings, they've shown some interest, you filed your PPA before, that's your main form of protection. No, I think it's very reasonable to ask them to sign your NDA once they've shown interest and you've had a couple talks with them and they want some of your CAD drawings if you have them. A lot of our inventors, they don't have CAD drawings, nor do you need them. But if you have them, Eric, I think that's very reasonable, very reasonable. So when you hear us sign, don't ask every company to sign your NDA, hear us saying things like that, it's not black and white, it's when, and these are the types of things we help our students out with. Sake said, I just released my invention to the ammunition industry this week for free. Sake, I don't know why you do that. I think that if you have an invention, you deserve to get paid for it. So I don't know why you would do that. I don't know why you need to release it for free. I mean, open source in a lot of ways with, software and things can be cool, but I don't know why that's necessary for ammunition. But, I don't know your whole story. So you can, but maybe because you thought you couldn't afford to try to license it or didn't want to bother. But if you can file a provisional for $70 and fish off the pier for a whole year, I don't know why you wouldn't do that and then approach ammunition companies and license it to one of them, receive royalties. If you don't want the royalties, you could donate the royalties to something, So I don't know why you did that. If you type in at the bottom, I'd like to know why you did that. And before we get off here in a few minutes, it's an interesting comment. People just type things in here, so it's you don't always have the whole story. So if we're ever on these live sessions, which we're not going to do forever, by the way, we didn't do this before the condition that's happening right now on YouTube. You're not supposed to use the word because something happens. So I'm not using the word before this current business environment with what's going on in the world right now happened. We didn't do these live YouTube streams, so we thought it'd be really cool to during these this current environment, and we just really enjoy it. But we won't be doing these forever. But I don't have a date where I decided I'm going to stop doing it. So, but since we've been doing these, you guys can only type so much. So if whatever reason you're like, well, Andrew didn't fully answer my question. Well, I might not have all the details, but I think I do a good job giving the details, giving the answers that everybody can understand, even though it might not specifically completely answer your question. Let's see. Andrew says, no, you're addressing me, Andrew. Blue Caveman. Okay, you didn't write your name, dude. We'll call you Blue. Andrew, I have an idea I am working on, but I also have come up with 2 other similar models. Should I present my original idea first, then present my 2 other ideas models, or present the 3? You need to pick. This is really hard for inventors. You just need to pick the best one and put your best foot forward. Now, if they reject your first one, they say, no, I'm not interested. You could say, I've got 2 other variations. Can you take a quick look? If there's substantially difference and would make a difference. But if the benefit's the same and they just weren't interested in the benefit, you have to pick one. You can't pick 3 versions. It just doesn't work. You don't want to do that. It's hard to do, but you got to pick one of them. Again, sometimes there's an exception without knowing you're specifically. There might be an exception there, but whenever I can tell you when our students have multiple variations, we almost always make them pick one. It's almost never, here's my 3 versions. Pro Innovate. Hey, Keith. Keith's a former student. Keith Lawrence here. I love the Q&A shows and that they are archived to be listened to later. Great, Keith. Keith's licensed a bunch of products. Very flattering, Keith, that you would come on and listen to me ramble since you've licensed a few products. I'm assuming, Keith, I forget your last name. I'm assuming it's the same Keith I'm thinking of. I'm almost positive that the Keith that was a student of ours was Lawrence. I'm not sure. You can correct me, Keith, if you want. Type in at the bottom if you were a past student. Maybe I forget your last name. So I forget the Keith's last name that was a student. Now I sound like I'm rambling. I had a long day, guys. I think I'm doing pretty good considering what a long day I had. Vic says, how long does it take for a contract / licensing deal to happen? As I have ADD and the anticipation is killing me. So yeah, like I said, the average when we are guiding our students, which is proper, is the average is 3 months. Now, I just took on a new student, Joanna. She's fantastic. She's helping her dad, and they've been. I'm not disclosing anything confidential here, and they just became a student. We're helping them with the negotiation. They've had interest from a company for 2 years. They weren't doing it right. Okay, so when you're doing it right, using the InventRight approach, the average is 3 months. Could be a little less, could be a little more, but and right now, our negotiation coach Paul has actually more deals in the hopper than usual with our students, but he's noticing they're taking longer because of COVID. They're just taking a little longer to get back, a little longer to do the deals, which is perfectly fine, but it will drive you insane. And so Stephen doesn't mind me saying this. I've said this before. Stephen is the most impatient person in the world. He said this publicly, so he doesn't mind me saying this. And he's done very well with licensing. So if he can license stuff and be patient, you can. The way you deal with it, Vic, is if you're not in an advanced contract stage, you can reach out to more companies. Keep yourself busy doing that. But if you're like really more advanced contract stage and you're just waiting back for a few things, it kills most inventors. It just drives people insane. But it just is what it is. So make sure you have somebody guiding you. I don't memorize all of our students by name, so I don't know if you're a student or not. I would need to check our database. There was a time where I knew every student's name and I knew every deal and everything, but we've gotten big enough where I don't. So let's see. So yeah, Vic, it'll drive you insane. That happens for everybody because it's kind of a slow process. Jay says you should place the legal advice disclaimer at the bottom of the screen so you won't have to say it periodically. Yeah, it's kind of obnoxious that I say it over and over. There's been, I think, some videos where I didn't say it at all. I just want to cover our butts. We're it's just important to do that. So hopefully that's just the price you pay for getting free advice, Jay. I'm just joking. Chad said, are there any product types where you might recommend a prototype? It really depends on the product, if it's necessary or not. It's not the product type. It's like, is a company, if a company shows interest in your marketing piece and they're like, well, how do we make this? And you're like, oh, well, there's that thing over there and we're just going to change a little like this. And you're like, oh, okay. Then, why would you make one? But sometimes you want to make a prototype because you want to show it working in a video, but it doesn't really work quite right. But you shoot the video 10 times and the one time it works right, that's the one you show. There's so many things that I could talk about with prototypes. So it's hard to answer that without giving specific examples. Brandon, you said multiple PPAs or one PPA with variations. Thanks, Andrew. You're the real deal. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I'm not good at everything in life, but if you do something for 20 years and that's all you do for 2 decades or more, you better be good at it. And I'm really proud that we're really good at, and our whole team is really good at licensing. No, you can throw all the variations and you should throw it in your first PPA, but then a company mentions something, oh crap, I didn't cover that, or you think of something, then you file a second PPA. Just file the first one again, you take the additional stuff and the yield protection from the first date, the first PPA, and the second date, that is the additional stuff in it from the second date. And we could get into a lot of detail with those timelines, but throw all the variations into your first PPA. That's the way you're supposed to do it. But if you later think of something, it's only $70 to file another one, so go for it. Michael says, shout out to Stephen Key. Would really like to see him live with you. You need special software to do the YouTube stream live. I asked Stephen if he wanted to. He's like, Andrew, you're doing so good. That's your thing, man. And he's been doing a great job with the YouTube shows lately. I interviewed 2 of our students that licensed a product today, and those should be coming out. And then I got 3 more this week, and then I'm going to try to have 5 next week. So you're going to see a lot of videos. We have a lot of students licensing products, but I just didn't take the time to interview them. So my goal is to interview within the next 2 weeks 15 InventRight students that have licensed products and try to find as many of them as possible that already have a product on the market so we can actually show the product. Because as some of you are like, well, that's great, Andrew. They did a deal. They talked about the process and all that, but I'd love to see the product. So I'm trying to interview more people. So hopefully I'll have 2.5 weeks from now, I'll have 15 of those interviews in the can. So look for those. And if you guys can do me a favor, if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, click down below. I think on the live stream, you can click on subscribe. Please click on subscribe. We just hit our 40,000 mark. If you're not subscribed, just click on subscribe. It's not going to like send you stuff, so don't worry about that. But it just helps our ranking. And then click on the thumbs up button too. Really, really appreciate that. Some YouTubers, they're like constantly telling people click subscribe, click the thumbs up, and we don't normally say that. And I think I'm going to start doing that because it really helps us, helps the show, helps more inventors find us too. So I'm going to try to start doing that again. Fabrizio, Andrew is such a nice guy. Thank you. Yeah, my family's always said I really like to help people. So 20 plus years ago, before that, actually, when I was running my Inventor Association, I found my calling. And this is it. I just love doing this. How can you not like helping people that are so passionate about what they're doing, so passionate about your ideas? And the people I like to help are the small percentage of inventors that are willing to do the work. And I mean that truly. A lot of people come up with ideas, but they're not willing to do the work. And what the YouTube show does is it helps people understand the work they need to do, and it filters people out. Like if somebody watches our show and goes, wait a minute, this guy wants me to do some sort of work. I have great ideas. They should just, somebody should just take the idea and run with it for me. And those inventors end up getting victimized by invention promotion companies. Oh, give us 12 grand, we'll do it for you, and nothing ever gets licensed, right? And I don't want to help those inventors. I want to help people that want to do the work, that are passionate about their idea, but they're not lazy about doing the work. And we can remove all the obstacles and the worries that you guys have and empower you to do that work. Whether you're a fan or just read our book, or whether we're coaching you, I want to help those inventors. And these shows help people figure out, well, do I want to do that work or not? And I bet a lot of people watch your show and go, it sounds like too much work. But to me, it's like nothing compared to running a business. It's great. And a lot of people go, wow, I could do this. I don't need 10 grand for a patent. I don't need to spend 5 grand on a prototype. I can reach out to companies. I can do this. And our whole team at InventRight really loves empowering people to realize they can live their dream, but it's going to require work. So, and whether you're in the process of figuring that out, that's fine. So you might not have decided, I want to make that leap, whether it's on your own or with us coaching you. And by doing these shows, live shows, YouTube shows, we're helping you figure that out. But I want to help people, inventors that want to do work. I don't want people that want to make $1 million overnight with no effort, and they think they don't have to do any work. That's just not business. They're not business people. And you're a business person if you're dedicating yourself to do that work. So, I'm about 4 minutes over, and it's about 6:14 for me. I still got some stuff I got to take care of, guys. I got some students to take care of and some emails to take care of, so I got to hop off. Really enjoyed talking to you guys. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. I was just reading a few of the comments there. So welcome, Philip. You're welcome, Philip, and you're welcome, everybody. I hope you guys enjoy this. If you didn't enjoy it, just don't come back. Don't watch the show. But if you enjoy it, check out our show. Click on subscribe. Please help us out. And click on the thumbs up button. Helps us out. Help us out there as well. And tell your friends about the show. If you've been watching our shows, we're not hucksters. We're not trying to sell you the next latest, greatest course. Yes, we do have a coaching program, but anybody I think can comfortably watch our shows and feel like I'm getting great information. They're not like constantly trying to sell me on their programs or their books or what have you. So thank you, everybody. All right. So take care, everybody. Keep inventing. and we'll catch up with you next time. See you. We're going to be back here next Wednesday at 5:10 Pacific. So check that out. And if you want to watch other recordings of other live streams I've done, you guys are welcome to do that as well. But it's kind of cool to get questions answered live. If I didn't get to your question, I could not get to everybody. Today, I actually went from top to bottom. So if you didn't get your question answered and you got an important one, show up earlier next time. There might be a better chance that I answer yours. Sometimes I go randomly all over the place. But anyway, take care, guys. See ya. Bye.